Welcome everyone to Buddha's Center. It's so wonderful that we could all be here tonight. And before we get started, I just want to recite one prayer. That I don't have with me, so we won't do that. So hey, so great that we're all here together tonight. May this teaching be heard and understood in the language of all sentient beings. So I just wanted to read that properly from the Sanchu Molam in English and in Tibetan, but that's the gist of it. So wonderful that we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's Source of All My Good this evening. Specifically the section we've gotten to on the teachings for beings of great capacity, and we've learned about aspiring bodhicitta and engaged bodhicitta, and we're currently talking about the three moralities that a bodhisattva engages in, that within those three moralities we find the bodhisattva vows and the first morality when we look at the commentaries on this text. So that's where we are. But before we get started and look at this text in greater detail, let's get into the 7-point Vairakana posture like we always do, to try to get our minds into a more kind of reasonable place, a place from which we can look at this text and try to extract as much as we possibly can out of it, and not kind of bring any of our preconceived notions in that would make us think, oh, well, this is the next thing that he's going to say, so I don't need to pay as much attention, when there may be a slight variation on the next thing that someone's going to say that could change everything in terms of your realization. So sometimes just hearing the same material over and over and over again, one day it just kind of clicks. And maybe it just clicks because you're able to hear it in a different way that isn't kind of crowded by your preconceived notions. So when we look at this idea that Aryadeva says, that from the side of the student has to have this kind of open mind. That's what this open mind means. It's being able to not have your mind be crowded by all of your kind of preconceived notions and all of these ideas, not allowing it to be crowded by that, because that crowding of your kind of ideas of where this is going or what it is, and I already know this, doesn't allow you to hear what's actually being said. So when we talk about the three faults of the pot, the overturned pot, that means that you're not listening at all. You know, it's a pot that can't be filled in any way whatsoever. And then we have a pot that has a hole in it that leaks. So that's compared to, not, being able to hold on to all of the information because you're not paying attention enough. So even though it's coming in, it's leaking out. But then there's this other thing that we can have a tendency to do. Sometimes when we think, oh, this is the introduction, or these are the basic teachings that everybody has, or this is the kind of public talk. So I'm going to allow my mind to kind of, think I know where it's going, or just kind of think I know what should be said next. And when I have that third pot. I have that faulty pot that's contaminated. And when we think of contaminated pots, we usually think of it contaminated with something that's so bad or so terrible, but it could be contaminated in terms of listening with things that are correct, but not just they're crowding, even though they're correct things, they're correct points. And maybe you're thinking about like, what's the next thing coming? It's correct in terms of the process. By doing so, you're pushing out your ability to really have all of the information come in. So when we get to this more realistic place that we do every time with this 7-point Vairakana posture and the breathing, the focal points, etc., the reason that we're doing this isn't only to calm our mind down so there isn't so much scattering or sleepiness, and probably this conceptuality is scattering. So we would say that, but if we pinpoint also it in terms of the pots, what kinds of scattering or what kinds of messaging that could get us not to hear things properly could go on, it doesn't mean that the scattering is always just going to something bad. It could be on something virtuous, but it's not allowing you to hear properly what needs to be heard. So we're getting ourselves to a realistic place where we're trying to dull this conceptuality down by doing the focus on the breathing in and out and the counting. And by dulling that down, it allows for kind of a fertile ground from which to grow seeds from. Because if we don't have that and our mind is, so busy, we'll immediately take over the teaching in our mind, and we'll immediately go, well, I know what the teachings should in common with beings of small capacity are, and the teachings should in common with beings of medium capacity are, and the teachings for beings of great capacity are. When's he going to get to how to get samadhi and clairvoyance and these big concentrations and the lack of objective, intrinsic, inherent existence of all reality? But the bottom line is that in order to get to those places, we have to really thoroughly have investigated all of these prior places that kind of allow us to get to those fancier places. And the stuff we're analyzing has to be correct. We have to have heard it correctly. So this is the reasoning behind doing this process of getting the conceptuality down, as Buddha said you can do by counting the breath, focusing on the breath and counting the breath. That conceptuality allows us, that getting rid of that kind of conceptuality allows us to have a better relationship with the teaching and abstain from the faults of the three pots. So I think it's important. So let's get into the 7-point Vairocana posture. As usual, we will get a focal object, and sometimes it's added as an 8th point to the Vairocana posture, the breathing. So this 8th point, this focal object of breathing, is what we're going to use to help bring down our conceptuality and start to practice getting into a fixed meditation where we tell our mind the exact object of observation that we're going to focus on, and we don't allow our minds to focus on anything else. So we're going to get into a fixed meditation, kind of telling our minds what to do. We're going to get this conceptuality to a kind of reasonable place, and we're going to do so by focusing on the breathing in and out and counting of the breath. And then the front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni, beautiful, radiant, about the size of your thumb, maybe 1.5 inches or 2, and about the eye height, arm length away. And with your mind, you're going to imagine this beautiful form that's static of Buddha Shakyamuni while you're breathing in and out and counting the breath. So this is all you're going to allow your mind. This is how the spine, your mind introspection is going to allow your mind to focus on without setting off an alert to mindfulness. So introspection will set off an alert. Deet, deet, deet. The spine of the mind sees that you've told your mind to focus on breathing in and out and counting and the front generation of Buddha Shakyamuni. And now you're thinking about the emptiness of inherent existence. This is wrong. Even though meditating on emptiness is beautiful, you didn't tell your mind to meditate on emptiness. You told your mind to meditate on the breath, the counting, and Buddha Shakyamuni. So this alarm goes off. Introspection, the spy in your mind when you're meditating should go off and say, okay, I've caught it. I've caught this is happening. There's the focal object has been lost because of some kind of scattering excitement or some kind of dullness or sleepiness. And then mindfulness, which is not forgetting the object being breathing in and out, counting in Buddha Shakyamuni, goes and grabs that object and brings it back because you told your mind that was it. And that was all you were supposed to be counting, relying on or focusing on. So mindfulness, again, not forgetting the object, has been lost at the point where introspection catches excitement, scattering, or dullness. This mindfulness has been lost. So the only way to know if it's been lost is to kind of be in the background, seeing if these things are occurring before they get so out of control that you're onto those completely. So if you get so out of control that you're onto those completely, then your introspection has completely failed. The introspection is supposed to catch it as at its most, coarse levels, and then get it at its more and more subtle levels as it occurs. And then the lethargy or dullness being the hardest thing to kind of, get rid of at its subtlest level and to see there with the introspection. The introspection has a hard time, once it gets very subtle in terms of dullness and catching it. And that's why we're, developing this skill and becoming more and more able to use this skill with more and more subtle objects but using them at first with the more gross kind of understanding of them, so that we can eventually abandon the more subtle things that we need to abandon in order to achieve shamatha. So we have to at first, kind of use it in this coarse way, because it's going to get so subtle, it's going to barely be able to be distinguishable that you're sitting in lethargy or dullness. And it's just going to be a really tight introspection that's going to be able to catch this, that the mindfulness isn't exactly accurate, because the object somehow isn't as brilliant as it should be, isn't as clear as it should be. So, just think about as clear as it should be versus just a little less clear. Think about how hard that is to distinguish in terms of almost asleep, almost asleep, almost asleep, almost asleep. Just think about how there are these stages of even going to sleep, and how they start with, I can't sleep. There's no way I can sleep. And then 5 minutes later, somehow you're sleeping. So we see that this occurs in our everyday experience, and we can use our everyday experiences to kind of explain the Dharma to us, and to try to understand what these kinds of things mean when we look at this in terms of the objects of abandonment and the coarser and more subtle ones, and how we have to practice and get good at any kind of introspection if we want to get good at the one that catches the thing that is so subtle that you can barely, tell the difference. It's like when you're turning a dimmer, once it's all the way up, like if you were to leave the room and someone turned it down, I don't know, a millionth of a millimeter or something this way, like I'm saying, a little tiny amount, you wouldn't notice the difference in the room when you walk back in, because the light, it would be such a subtle change. And it's kind of like that. Okay, so we're going to breathe in and out and count. We're going to look at Buddha Shakyamuni in our mind, and we're going to not let it do anything else. And we're going to do that for a little bit, and then we'll go from there. We're so fortunate to be here tonight, to be able to clearly understand the intent of Buddha Shakyamuni. Lord Atisha was so kind to show us how all the teachings of Lord Buddha are free from contradiction, are instructions for practice. We can easily understand the conqueror's intent, and we will not engage in the great wrongdoing. And we're so fortunate that we're able to see that all of the teachings that Lord Buddha gave were given out of great compassion for individuals, in order for each and every individual to go from wherever they are at spiritually to the complete state of Buddhahood. And Lord Atisha said, understand that there are persons of three capacities: small, medium, and great. I shall write clearly to identify their individual characteristics. And we see that these three capacities summarize everything that Lord Buddha taught, because Lord Buddha came to teach how one would become a Buddha. And we know that until we get to the small scope, until we abandon attachment for this life, we don't start to become a spiritual practitioner. So we know that the Buddha came to teach us how to become and how to be spiritual practitioners. So all of the teachings that Lord Buddha gave were able to be summarized into these three categories. And we're so fortunate to be able to have all of the paths and all of the things necessary for us to achieve that perfect state of enlightenment right in the palms of our hands, in terms of books, in terms of iPhones, in terms of iPads. We right in the palm of our hand have the capacity to understand the intent of Lord Buddha, this intent that's so hard to understand and so easily misinterpreted, and over the couple thousands of years has been so misinterpreted because of the subtlety of Buddha's teachings, and because Buddha was teaching to scope and gave so many different teachings and varieties of teachings because of the varieties of students' dispositions. And we're so fortunate to be able to understand that fact and see with the mirror of the Dharma what type of being we are. And then once we are really honest with ourselves, begin to throw ourselves into the realizations that are in the small, medium, and great scope that we haven't had, so that we can eventually achieve the state of Buddhahood that all vehicles lead to. According to the great Prasangika vehicle, there's one vehicle at the end of the day, because all vehicles lead to the state of Buddhahood, either as a byway or a direct way. And the Mahayana vehicle, all the hearers and solitary realizers in the fundamental vehicle or the Hinayana vehicle will become Buddhas, even after they achieve an abiding nirvana and have gotten rid of the afflictive obstructions. They still have the obstructions to omniscience. They still have the imprints or the stains of the afflictive obstructions in their continuum. Even they will become Buddhas, and they will become Buddhas. Those beings who are in nirvana already will become Buddhas by relying on the Mahayana Dharma once they awaken from their abide nirvana, from Buddha's snap, that we are currently studying. So we're so fortunate that we're studying the nectar that even somebody who's in an abiding nirvana will need to study in order to achieve perfection. We're there studying it already. Think about how fortunate we are and how blessed we are. And then imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni, who's in the space in front of us, becomes completely animated and is so happy, just so full of bliss. You imagine Buddha Shakyamuni right there, and that bliss explodes into the entire merit field. Imagine that all, excuse me, all the holy beings are in the space in front of you, and Buddha Shakyamuni has been containing all of those holy beings. Imagine now the merit fields there, brilliant and beautiful in the space in front of you, so animated. Buddha Shakyamuni so animated, so happy that we're here tonight and studying exactly what he came to the world to teach. For what purpose? For us to all be free from suffering, and for us to all have infinite happiness, for us to all have bliss. And we're doing exactly what we need to do to achieve freedom from suffering and bliss. And imagine how happy that makes a teacher when you're doing what they're teaching you, or you're really interested in what they taught you, or engaging in what they taught you how to do. How proud that makes a teacher in general. Many of you are teachers. Think about that. Now imagine how proud Buddha Shakyamuni is as a teacher to see he came here with one purpose, to teach one thing, and that was how to become a Buddha. Taught a whole bunch of different things, because there's a variety of different beings who need to hear a variety of things in order for them to evolve at their own capacity. But all of it is to make everyone eventually a Buddha. So amazing. We have this in our hands. Imagine how happy Buddha Shakyamuni would be that among the billions of people, how few of us there are that are actually caring about this, or caring about what Buddha came to bring to this world. How happy that kind of teacher would be if he saw that there, he came to teach the whole world, but at least somebody's getting it. Really amazing from a teacher's perspective what that would mean. And if you were trying to teach the end of suffering and bliss to sentient beings, and you saw them doing it, you'd be like, oh my gosh, they're getting it, they're doing it. How happy, how blissful that would make holy beings like Buddha Shakyamuni. So imagine that bliss you see in Buddha Shakyamuni's eyes, you looking into Buddha Shakyamuni's eyes as a living being who loves you, who has infinite compassion and love for all sentient beings. You being a sentient being has complete non-bias and looks at you with so much love and compassion that it's almost unbelievable. It's as if you've never been looked at with that much love and compassion. And I can relate to that. And when I see His Holiness the Dalai Lama look at me, or I see Khyentse Geshe Wandak look at me, I can say that I've never felt like anybody's looked at me with that much love and compassion. It's just amazing. So imagine all the holy gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas there. Imagine Khyentse Geshe Wandak. He'd be so happy as a teacher to see his students still learning, to see that I'm carrying on the teachings as he asked. He's right there. I'm just imagining him right there on a beautiful lotus, inseparable from White Tara, just right there. Kensur Geshe Wandak, His Holiness the Dalai Lama on a throne supported by 8 snow lions, strong, not going anywhere, staying in this world, the Buddha of compassion, remaining in this world to teach us that pure, unperverted Dharma, free of elaborations. So fortunate. Imagining all holy beings like Geshe Lobsang Gompo and Dema Loche Rinpoche and the previous abbot, Gen Gyatso of Losaling, Kensur Rinpoche. And imagining Geshe Dorje Namdu and Umzala Geshe Aga, who we're so fortunate to have, who gave me an incredible teaching on emptiness today and broke down all kinds of isolates and entities and differences in autonomy school and Prasangika school. And it was so incredible. He's so kind to be able to take the time at 11 o'clock at night in India, after he's been doing stuff all day and prayers and nonstop, to be able to take the time to explain the Madhyamika Prasangika view and some questions that I had, and to really just reinforce this idea of existence, yet not inherent existence, and not negating the object, negating the inherent existence of the object, but not the unfindability ultimately of the object, and the idea that the ultimate existence of the object, when we look at a flower, it can't be found, but we can't posit its non-existence because it conventionally exists through mere imputation. Incredible breakdown. We're so fortunate to have beings like this. So thank you, Umzala Geshe Aga and Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin and Jeffrey Hopkins. We're so fortunate to have him and others like him who came and just became machines for us, machines that made the words of the material that will make us into Buddhas. That those words weren't clear, and these kind beings made these words clear. We have such a relationship to the translators because when we say their words, they made those words up. There's such an intimate relationship. So when we think of the translators and we think of translation, think about the intimacy of the words that they've chosen that are allowing you to understand how to become a Buddha. Very, very, very special. Remembering Lama Alan Wallace and Alexander Berzin and all of the Professor Robert Thurman, all the other great translators, Garis Parham, all of the incredible, Betsy Napper. There's so many. Just remembering them also in the merit field, because without the kind work, without the work that they've done, this is just nothing. We just sit here like this and maybe come up with some phrases or ideas, but we would never be differentiating autonomy and Prasangika and consequence school. We'd never, ever have a chance to do that. And if there's grasping, you don't have the view. And everything below Prasangika has grasping and they don't have the view at the end of the day. So really amazing that we have these words that we can find the view with. And if it's the view is the only thing that ends cyclic existence, these words are really important. And that's the relevance of this. These words that we're learning, these words that, Ruth Sonam and so forth wrote into these books, whether they made them up or not, they chose to put them there so that you could understand how to become a Buddha. Wow, amazing, amazing motivation. So just imagining all of these beings in the space in front of you, Chado Rinpoche, Ani Tupten children, and so forth. Now imagining the beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni and Maitreya, and Asanga and Vasubandhu and Dharmakirti and Dignaga, and Vimukta Sena and Haribhadra. And it's important to, when we hear this, we sometimes say extensive deeds lineage. I'm putting Haribhadra and Vimukta Sena in there, and they're not mind-only school followers. The reason I'm saying the names there is because they commented on Maitreya's text in great detail in the 70 topics and so forth, and wrote commentaries on the Abhisama Alamkara, and that's why we put them in there. Although we would say, I believe Haribhadra is a Madhyamika Svatantrika holder, but check me. Imagining all those beings, Vimukta Sena and Haribhadra and Shakyaprabha and Gunaprabha and Lama Salimpa and Lama Atisha. And again, Lama Salimpa is in both lineages because Lama Salimpa holds both lineages, the profound view and extensive deeds lineages of bodhicitta, but holds the mind-only school view, which is in the extensive deeds lineage only, does not hold the Prasangika view. So just a little bit of an idea why we put Salimpa in both sides and we put Atisha in both sides, whereas Atisha holds both views, both the extensive deeds and the profound view lineages, understanding of bodhicitta in terms of 7-point cause and effect and equalizing, exchanging self with others. But Atisha holds the Madhyamaka view of emptiness. And Salimpa held the mind-only school view of emptiness. But Lama Atisha said that his kindest teacher was Lama Salimpa. Imagine that. Someone who holds a view lower than yours that isn't correct. Why? Because Lama Salimpa was the teacher of bodhicitta. You can't become a Buddha without bodhicitta. And if you don't have that quintessential instruction on bodhicitta, and you have Madhyamika Prasangika, this equals, if you have renunciation, Hinayana, nirvana. Here, solitary realizer, nirvana, abiding nirvana, does not equal Buddhahood. The view you have to have no matter what, but that bodhicitta is special. That's what, combined with the view, makes you a Buddha. Without it, and just having the view, you only can become a hero, a solitary realizer. You have to have that bodhicitta with the foundation of renunciation. So just a slight diversion, and then the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddhapalita and Aryadeva and Chandrakirti and Shanti Deva, Chandrashita, Kamalashila, Baba Vega, all these holy beings who hold the views of the Madhyamaka lineage, and Prasangika, specifically Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti and Shanti Deva and so forth. We're so fortunate to be connected to these beings and connected to all these different things I'm mentioning, the different lineages of bodhicitta and instructions on bodhicitta coming from the two lineages, and the understanding of the Madhyamika Prasangika view that really you'll never get to without understanding mind only and without understanding the autonomy view, because the object of negation is very subtle when we get to the Prasangika view, and the understanding of it requires really looking at what the other schools are asserting as being inherently existent, and are asserting as, no, they're not truly existent. They're just, but they are inherently existent. To be able to find that object of negation that's so subtle, it's really, you have to have that staircase of the other tenets. So we see that even though we say, oh, it's a view that they're still grasping in, it's a view that serves as a staircase to no grasping. And without that staircase, good luck getting to no grasping. So we're fortunate that then we imagine Lama Salimpa and Atisha for the reasons just mentioned. And then Dron Tompa, the lay person who Atisha gave the entire Lamrim lineage to, there in the space in front of you, looking at going, I was a lay person too, if you're a lay person, and look what I did. Atisha gave me the whole Lamrim lineage. Don't make excuses. Dron Tompa is saying that. Imagine these beings are animated and you have a relationship with them. We've studied them so much. And when, Jeffrey Hopkins, Professor Gen Nenden, Jambil Drabala was saying, his teachers told him, just tell the stories. Tell it so that there's feeling in it. And we're so fortunate that we have the stories of these teachers and so forth. And we should really bring them into an animated place where we know Dron Tompa, was so strict about, getting rid of the, thoughts of attachment to this life and so forth. And he was a layperson. So we have to see what's meant by that and not confuse attachment for this life with, oh, I have to go live in solitude in order to not have attachment for this life. You cannot have attachment for this life and fully participate in it as a very good participator, the best participator, if you don't have attachment for this life. You can be the best mother, father, sister, daughter, brother, son, etc. if you don't have attachment for this life. You'll be the worst one if you have attachment for this life, because your decisions will be made in dependence upon things that really don't tally with reality. So you're not going to be the best you can be if you're attached to this life as a mother, father, daughter, sister, brother, roommate, etc. So imagining all the three old Kadampa lineages, imagining all the holy beings of Nyingma, such as Padmasambhava, Sakya, Satya Kunga Nimpo, Sakya Pandita, imagining the holy beings of the Kaju lineage, the Karmapas. We're so fortunate to be connected to all of these beings, and the beings of the, Galupa lineage, Lama Tsongkhapa, and so forth. And don't forget the lineage of blessings of practice passed down from Vajradhara, Saraha, and Matripa to Lopa Naropa, Losawa Marpa, Milarepa, and Gampopa. All these beings in the space in front of us, imagining Milarepa singing those songs about, abandoning the attachment for this life and abandoning attachment for samsara and looking at the mind and the nature of the mind and the emptiness of the mind and the emptiness of the subject. Really amazing. Imagine he's just playing that guitar and singing the songs of the emptiness of inherent existence, of the mind. This clear light mind that's unsullied. Incredible. We're so fortunate. Highest Yoga Tantra deities, Performance Tantra deities, Action Tantra deities, all the 35 Buddhas, all the protector deities, all in the space in front of you. Now imagine that you invite all sentient beings to be your guest. When you become more and more able, the whole, as a bodhisattva, for instance, because your point will become to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, you will become more and more able to help sentient beings achieve their aims. And when we look at how you help sentient beings achieve their aims, we know sentient beings don't want suffering. We know sentient beings want happiness. So how you help sentient beings achieve their aims as a bodhisattva is to teach them, because you can't, just transfer a realization. So you have to teach them how to achieve their aims, happiness and freedom from suffering. So just like you want happiness and freedom from suffering, if you want the ultimate bliss of Buddhahood, you have to learn to put others' needs before your own, and you have to get to the point where you want to bring all sentient beings to a state of Buddhahood. And you become better and better at doing that as you become more and more realized on the bodhisattva path. So let's emulate. Let's try to pretend that we already are in a state where we could connect with all sentient beings and teach them exactly what they need to hear. And we know what they need to hear are the instructions for beings of three capacities, because that contains everything the Buddha ever taught. So there's nothing a sentient being needs that isn't presented in there. And when I say sentient being, that includes the 10th ground bodhisattva, because they're still sentient beings. So there's nothing in the teachings for three beings of three capacities missing. So we're teaching that tonight. So imagine that we bring every single sentient being here. That's every being that's not a Buddha, because the only thing that will get them to Buddhahood, the only thing that will get them to achieve their aims, freedom from suffering and the ultimate happiness, real happiness, will be to listen to the teachings for beings of three capacities. So we just imagine that we bring every single sentient being here to listen to those teachings, and they'll hear what they need to hear in order to complete their paths. They'll know, they'll be able to, from their minds, if they're on higher levels, they'll be able to extract the things that are needed. So just imagine that kind of amazing thing is going on when you start to, in your mind, imagine that you grab every single sentient being and you bring them here to hear this teaching, and you bring them here to sit in front of the merit field and to sit in front of, and now in this case, all the Buddhas and the gurus who are inseparable from the Buddhas. So you imagine now you have all sentient beings here. You brought all the hell-hungry ghosts, animals, humans, demigods, and gods here. Brought them all here. And now all beings in the universe are here, sentient beings and Buddhas. We have everybody in the universe here. Every mind, everyone with a mind is here. So now the ones with a mind that need help are here to hear the Dharma, the truth of suchness. And the ones that are here that don't need any help, the Buddhas, are all witnessing this, are all objects of our veneration, are making it so that we're connecting to what the actual truth is. So now we imagine that we've brought every sentient being here. We imagine that we all say we must become Buddhas for the sake of all sentient beings. And we recognize that this thought, we must become Buddhists for the sake of all sentient beings, is empty of inherent existence. We are empty of inherent existence. All sentient beings are empty of inherent existence. Buddha is empty of inherent existence. And we seal this understanding with the emptiness, with the nature of reality, so that we are proceeding with something that tallies with the way things that exist. And the opposite of that is objective existence. That makes sense. Okay, so now we have all beings in the universe here. Before I read the Heart Sutra, I want to read a little bit from Meditation on Emptiness. And it's all about setting motivation and kind of why this ritual that we do that it says to do in the Lam Rim, where we're imagining all of these sentient beings, why this might be better than not doing it. So let's see what it says. It says thus: it's very important that a motivation be stated verbally and explicitly before meditation. So here in this book, it's saying that, you should, before your meditation, even if you're alone, you should say it verbally. You should explicitly say that I'm doing this to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, to get rid of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience, setting and motivating. So it says, I am meditating on emptiness and analyzing phenomena in order to attain liberation from cyclic existence and omniscience so that I may help all sentient beings to do the same. The other possible motivation is I'm meditating on emptiness and analyzing phenomena in order to attain liberation from cyclic existence. The former is far more powerful because the meditation is related to all, through it, the meditation is related to all sentient beings. The force of the meditation increases as many times as the beings with whom it is related. Emptiness itself is a very powerful object of meditation. Aryadeva says those of little merit would not even have doubts about this doctrine. Like, oh, well, maybe emptiness is true. They would never even come to that conclusion. Even suspicion that objects are empty wrecks the seeds of cyclic existence or shakes cyclic existence. Even a suspicion that emptiness, the lack of inherent existence, is the mode of being of phenomena disturbs the very causes that produces the rounds of powerless suffering. 4, when one has such suspicion, the actual mode of being of objects acts for the slightest bit as an object of one's mind. Tsongkhapa says, aspirational prayer should be made for the ability to listen to the treatises on the profound emptiness, to memorize them, to think about their meaning, to meditate on them, and over the continuum of lives, to have faith in them, all without harming ascertainment of dependent arising and cause and effect, with still being able to posit cause and effect, existence, reality, externality, but emptiness of inherent existence, still being able to live those two worlds of conventional and ultimate reality, being able to be one entity. Jayan Sheba warns that though the transmission of the Buddhist teaching Tibet was prophesied in a sutra, it was also prophesied that there would be few who would take the perfection of wisdom all the way through to the process of meditation. He says there are many who memorize the words and who may propound the perfection of wisdom sutras, but who actually, but few who actually achieve the perfection of wisdom. He adds that there are uncountable numbers who, through the force of the 5 ruinations, the 5 degenerations of this time, we can look that up, do not want to meditate on emptiness, but still claim to meditate on the nature of the mind or something other than emptiness that lacks the elaboration of duality. Since natural mind, freedom from the elaborations of duality and so forth are none other than emptiness itself, and since it is meditation on emptiness that puts an end to its elaborations of misconception, it is mistaken to think that there is another final object of meditation. So if your final object of meditation isn't a non-affirming negative in terms of emptiness, then you aren't pointing at the right thing. And if you're pointing at, if your natural mind means the natural emptiness of inherent existence of the mind, then that's correct. But if you're seeking something else, when you say natural mind, abiding mind, then the lack of inherent existence of the mind, then you're missing the target and you aren't going to be liberated from cyclic existence. So that's the meaning in this. It's mistaken to think there's another final object of meditation. The object of negation is one, the inherent existence of phenomena. Full stop. The various teachings that Buddha does not even abide in the middle way, or that Buddha ultimately does not even teach emptiness, must be understood as referring to his not abiding in, or his not teaching an inherently existent middle way, or inherently existent emptiness. So Buddha taught that emptiness lacks inherent existence, the emptiness of emptiness. So emptiness becomes, an object which we can state is a dependent origination, and therefore, because it's a dependent origination, because emptiness is a phenomena, and all phenomena are empty of inherent existence. He says, those who actually do not meditate on emptiness but claim to do so mistakenly think that merely by withdrawing the mind from objects and by ceasing thought that they can realize the suchness of phenomena. Rather, analysis is the very foundation of meditation on emptiness. So we have to engage in analysis to get to a non-discursive place. We have to use conceptuality to get the yogi gets to non-conceptual state of a realization of direct perception of emptiness, a yogic direct perception of emptiness, by relying on analysis, by relying on conceptuality, by relying on correct signs, and by relying on an inferential valid cognition that has as its object of observation emptiness, that gets more and more subtle in terms of the signs and so forth. And then one has a direct valid perception of emptiness. But all of that discursive thought is necessary. All that conceptual thought is necessary to analyze what does it mean that form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. You can't have an emptiness without something that is empty. So when you posit emptiness, you have to be showing something that is empty. Emptiness isn't just this thing that is out there like a god or something. Emptiness requires something that's empty. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. We see that because emptiness is possible, anything is possible. If emptiness isn't possible, nothing is possible. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once, the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice profound Prajaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty in nature. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity, no purity. There is no decrease, no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye dhatu, no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as true, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate buddhisoa. 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 Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, good, good, O son of noble family. Thus it is, O son of noble family. Thus it is, one should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. I prostrate to the gatherings of Dakinis in the 3 chakras who abide in the holy yoga of using space. By your powers of clairvoyance and magical emanation, look after practitioners like a mother looks after a child. Kalajibe nejo damba nenguje duju ngai dudo jendru baba lama yi bujinzi nizung gandrozo la jatzelo agasamara jachandara samara ebe agasamara jat. Agasamara jachandara samara ebe de ato. By the truth of the existence of the 3 jewels, may all inner and outer hindrances and adversities be overcome. May they become non-existent. May they be pacified. May they be completely pacified. May all negative forces opposed to the Dharma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 The obstacles be pacified. May we be separated from all adverse conditions to the Dharma, and may we obtain all circumstances conducive to the Dharma. May there be auspiciousness, happiness, and well-being here, right now. Baba Gunja Zonji Kaya Dembe Doji She, Lobo Doji, Mebo Doji, Shewa Doji, Dragi Baji Metu Bisha Danji Shedin Goria Soha, Kirin Donjaji Shewa Dan, Mitun Bejan Dandra Wadan, Dumba Donjin Bonzon Georgi, Daji Dejan Dendale Sho. I'll make a mandala offering of a perfect, wonderful universe. Last teaching, there was a good description of the mandala offering and how to relate to the mandala offering in this beautiful, beautiful, perfectly pure realm you're offering with beings who are enjoying it so much with no problems or anything. And this is what the Buddhas want. They would want to be offered this pure place with so much happiness, because that's what the Buddhas came to teach us, how to have freedom from suffering and happiness. So imagine that we're just offering this kind of pure place when we're making this offering as a request for teaching. Fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas High, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sanje Jodan Zoji Jonan La, Shanju Badu Dani Jazuji, Dagi Juje Jipe Sonanji, Drola Benja Sanje Jubajo, Sanje Jodan Zoji Jonan La, Shanju Badu Dani Jazuji, Dagi Juje Jipe Sonanji, Drola Benja Sanje Juba Jo Sanje Jodan Zoji Jonan La Shanju Badu Dani Jazuchi Dagi Juje Jipe Sonanji Drola Bencha Sanje Juba Jo. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. From Nagarjuna's Moya Madhyamika Karika, and from Sancha Kunga Nimpo's parting from the 4 attachments taught to him by Manjushri when he was a small boy. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there's grasping, you do not have the view. Okay, so happy. I don't know the time again, unfortunately. I don't have a clock. Huh? Okay, good. Wonderful. So I have some time. 7:50. Gotcha. Okay, so we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's foundation of all good qualities, source of all my good. And what we'll do is we'll read it all once through. There's a point that I want to make in here. And we'll read it all once through. And then we'll get to the stanza we're on and get right into the Bodhisattva Vow book by Gensonan Rinchen, where we get into the 3 moralities and differentiate them. So the source of all, oh, I see, enabling. That's why I didn't enable screen share. That's why we didn't have any screen sharing, folks. This guy right here. You're looking for the object, the problem right here. Okay, so now we're going to read Lama Tsongkhapa's Source of All My Good. We know that Pabunka Rinpoche breaks this down into different categories. We know that Pabunka Rinpoche says that the first stanza deals with the very root of the path, which is how to take a lama and properly serve him or her. And then the next category is what to do how to train your mind once you've taken on a lama. So the first stanza deals with, that first part, the very root of the path, and then the second through 12 stanza deals with the second part, how to train your mind once you've taken a lama. And then the 13th stanza deals with category number 3 in Pabunka's outline, a request so that you can attain all the favorable conditions for succeeding in the path and stop all the circumstances that might prevent you from doing so. And then finally, stanza number 14 is a prayer that in all your future lives you may be taken under the care of a lama, and so gain the strength and reach the final end of the various levels and paths. So this is how we break down into 4 categories. First stanza, and then stanza 2 through stanza 12, and being first stanza being first category, stanza 2 through 12 being the second category, stanza 13 being the third category, and stanza 14 being the fourth category. So that's how we'll break it down. So I'll begin reading it. There's just one small point I want to make that's interesting. Source of All My Good by Lama Tsongkhapa. And again, I just want to say thank you to Jeffrey Hopkins so much for creating so much lexicon, so many words, and writing that book, Meditation on Emptiness. And we can truly see how lost we'd be in trying to understand this material without this work that he's done. And may all the obstacles to his returning to perfect health be removed from this excellent amount of virtue and through the virtues that we create by looking at this material. The Source of All My Good by Lama Tsongkhapa. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. So here, that's obviously the first to how to take on a Lama. But the next stanza is interesting because it says to take its essence night and day. And previously we were talking about, the small scope, the medium scope, and the great scope. And here Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, hey, you have this life of leisure. And in the Lamrim Chemo, then he says, you can engage, there's that short section on, here's the brochures I'm handing out. You can achieve, the small scope, freedom from the lower realms, medium scope, freedom from cyclic existence, great scope, you can achieve complete Buddhahood. But those are the only three ways that you would be a spiritual practitioner. You would start at this small scope. So what would make you a spiritual practitioner in the small scope, where it says in Sachen Kunga Nimpo's poem, if you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. So what makes you a spiritual practitioner, according to the great Kadampa masters, according to Dron Tompa, Atisha sometimes cited as, is to kind of throw this life out. So that seems strange. You have to take the essence of this life, but throw it out. So taking the essence of this life in the smallest scope even is similar to the definition of renunciation in Lama Tsongkhapa's three principal paths. I hope I'm connecting this and it's making sense. So the definition of renunciation in Lama Tsongkhapa's three principal paths is day and night seeking transcendent liberation. So taking its essence night and day in the medium scope would be, day and night seeking transcendent liberation. Night and day, that would be taking its essence. So in the small scope, we say small, but this practitioner is day and night doing everything it takes in this life to have a good next life. So when we look at what that's going to take in order to get a human basis, we know we have to engage in the practice of ethics and the six perfections and have stainless, pure kind of prayers to be able to achieve this human basis. We achieved had, it says here that their causes are difficult. It's so hard to find because the causes are so difficult. So to have a good next life, we have to create incredible amount of difficult causes for that to happen. So we have to day and night be seeking this higher realm rebirth and freedom from the lower realms. So day and night be abstaining from the 10 non-virtuous activities. Day and night, if we engage in the 10 non-virtuous activities, applying the 4 opponent powers. Day and night, going for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. Day and night, understanding that death will come and nothing can stop it. We don't know when we're going to die, and the only thing that can help is Dharma. And if the only thing that can help is Dharma, and that's what we're thinking about day and night, then this small scope practitioner's realizations start to become really big, where day and night they're going for refuge and they're abandoning the 10 non-virtues and they're engaging in the 4 opponent powers and so forth in order to be free from the lower realms of cyclic existence. And until you're doing that, you're not a spiritual practitioner. So you can see how if you're day and night only doing things for this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner because you're not day and night doing things to make it so that you have a good next life. Spiritual practitioner becomes whether or not you're shaping your future life. So taking the essence night and day in the small scope is still day and night doing this practice. You're just not day and night wanting to get out of cyclic existence altogether. You're day and night wanting to be free from the lower realms. And in order for that to happen, this human basis that you have right now, so you want to have a human life of leisure as a Dharma practitioner. You want to have a human life of leisure again so you can meet with the Dharma. But this human life of leisure, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying right here, is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Ever so hard to find because it's difficult to achieve, because the causes are difficult to achieve. The numbers are very few when we talk about those who will achieve it. And then there's examples of the difficulty of it to achieve that are given in scripture you can look up. So you see, if it's difficult to achieve a human rebirth, and a human rebirth is really what you're trying to achieve, maybe in the gods and so forth. But we know we've already learned, about Buddhism in the small scope. So this human life of leisure is the best. We know we have 8 leisures and so forth. And we could even in the future have the 10 opportunities if we meet with Maitreya. We could beat around during that time. So creating that kind of future, the one that we have right now was so difficult to achieve, and that we previously had to have really, really practiced and had some stainless thoughts to achieve it, then we know we can because we did it before. So we know it's possible. We've already done it here. We're a human. We're studying the Dharma. But in order for us to have achieved this situation that we're in, a lot of effort had to have gone in. There is power of magnification. I understand that, a virtuous karma. But a whole lot of effort had to have gone in for us to be here right now. So we have to put a whole lot of effort in. And the kind of effort that it begins with, this is day and night kind of effort. Not day and night, you're not doing anything but reading. Day and night being absorbed with this idea that the things of this life, that if I seek after them, the things of this life will only bring me more misery because they are the suffering of change. And the things of a future life, we can say, are also be the suffering of change too, if it's cyclic existence. But we'll be able to then have the opportunity to practice more Dharma. So we can look at these stanzas in a lot of different ways, and I think it's important to do so and be able to weave other things in and out of it to know what the heck we're talking about. So bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once, meaning I have it right now, and I have it here, right here. It's ever so hard to find. It's ever so valuable. Why is it valuable? Because from this human basis, if I take its essence, I can be free of the lower realms, I can be free of samsara, and I can achieve Buddhahood. But the only way that's going to happen is if I become a spiritual practitioner, and that doesn't start till I abandon attachment for this life. Very, very interesting. And what's the marker if I've done it? I would be taking its essence night and day. What would be taking its essence for the small scope practitioner? Making sure everything I do doesn't cause lower realm rebirth. That's a lot of mindfulness, no? That's a lot of big mindfulness going on for small scope practitioner. Really. Okay. Because, we find this in the teachings for beings of small capacity in the Lam Rim, this life of leisure and opportunity. So, and then taking the essence is, then Buddha says that, you can do, Tsongkhapa says, and Atisha says you could do small scope, medium scope, great scope. But we know, according to the Mahayana, the Prasangika view, that there's one vehicle at the end of the day. And then we could even argue there's one scope at the end of the day. Because all the small and medium scope eventually lead to the great scope, lead to the Mahayana. Okay. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first, lest to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do. Try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to receive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. So this is day and night. Essence night and day for this person is day and night striving for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful to recall that I should be doing. And what should I be doing? I should be trying to get out of samsara for this medium scope practitioner. That's taking its essence. Night and day, I should be trying to get out of samsara. I should recall that. And grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddhist teachings. I can't get out of samsara without the 3 highest higher trainings. found in with the three highest higher trainings having their foundation morality that serves as a foundation for concentration and wisdom. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for its enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Aspiring bodhicitta, bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I am not well trained in the three moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the bodhisattva vows, talking about engaged bodhicitta. Grant that I may quick, and that's where we are. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, one which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way, a stanza that's applicable to the medium and great scope. You can't achieve an abiding nirvana without this stanza. You can't achieve a non-abiding nirvana without this stanza. So this is this is a stanza that's in common with this medium and great scope. Grant that once I practice well the paths shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortunate and good. So once I've practiced all of the common paths, the teaching shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity, and the perfection vehicle, path of the great vehicle, may I then be able to enter through an initiation, because that's how you enter into the Tantrayana, is through an initiation. May I enter into an initiation with perfect ease, the way of the diamond, into the tantric path, in dependence upon the foundation I've created of the things that are shared in common with the highest path that serve as foundations for the highest path. May I set these foundations and then enter through initiation into the Vajrayana vehicle. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Grant me then to always keep them, even if it costs my life. Bless me next to realize as well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times highest that there is. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the reign of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me now, stop and end forever. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. Vajradhara is the one who holds the diamond, just so you know. That's who that's referring to. So we shoot back to the 3 moralities. If I am not well trained in the 3 moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. That's a problem. You better figure out what the 3 moralities are if you need them and cannot become a Buddha without them. So we went through this a little bit already. So I'm going to try and speed it up so we can get through more. So 3 moralities, we talked about them being, divided into, first, the morality of restraint from faulty action, then the ethics of accumulation of virtue, and then the ethics of working for others. So we went through the morality of abstaining from faulty action, and we saw all kinds of categories, common faulty actions that we all have to abstain from, and then the specific faulty actions that are in the vows, the individual liberation vows, the tantric vows, and the Vajrayana vows. I'm sorry, let me try that again. The individual liberation vows, the bodhisattva vows, and the tantric vows. That sounded better in my ear. So we have the common things that are common to all non-vow holders in terms of ethics that we have to engage in, and then those uncommon things that are vows, again, pradamoksha, bodhisattva, and individual liberation vows. So we went through that, and then we have the ethics of gathering virtue, and we went over the first 4 ethics of gathering virtue, and we talked about them. So I'm going to move right on to number 4. So we left off. So I'm just going to go. We read number 4, so I'm going to move on to number 5. I apologize. I'm multitasking here. I'm looking at root text, and prayers of dedication and aspiration are the 5th source of virtue. So let me go through back 1 through 4 real quickly without trying to make it too much. Okay, so the first is to strengthen our practice of the 3 kinds of training in ethics, concentration, and wisdom, and develop the 3 kinds of training from hearing, thinking, and meditating. So accumulating virtue in this way. And then the second way is creating virtue in relation to special fields of merit or sources of merit, which includes those who've helped you, parents who have excellent qualities, spiritual teachers, and those who arouse compassion for the sick. So creating virtue in relation to those kind of beings, treating them with respect, and so forth, nursing the sick, providing them with medicines. Third way of creating virtue is by developing a liking for the good qualities, and for those who have them. And we remind ourselves to thank and praise those who teach us correctly about the true nature of reality, and appreciate and praise those who possess good qualities. So really thinking about, I really want to have excellent qualities. When you see somebody with an excellent quality, let them know you have these excellent qualities. The fourth virtue is the practice of patience. This was really an important point here, and I'm going to reread it. There's two approaches that are helpful with your patience. One is to think that in our past lives, our past actions, we have set ourselves up as the target for this harm. So this is our karma when we're being harmed. So we should be patient. We did this, be patient. And number two is our present experience. The other approach is to remember that the person who is inflicting the harm is dominated by the demon of disturbing emotions and is out of control. So we went over that. They have the self-grasping ignorance, just like I do. I spin out of control because of it, just like they are at that moment. And then we think of in ways that we can help, and we think of, even if we are yet not bodhisattvas, thinking in these ways can help us to remain calm in potentially explosive situations. So it shows how, thinking about this, even if we're not a bodhisattva, can help us even like just day-to-day life, not cause a mess. Okay, number 5, prayers of dedication and aspiration are the fifth source of virtue. We dedicate the merit from our physical, verbal, and mental actions to our own enlightenment for the sake of others, to their peace, prosperity, and happiness, and ultimately to their highest enlightenment. In this way, we share our merit with them, and the virtue we create will not end. This is very interesting. In this way, we share our merit with them, and the virtue we create will not end until they have attained enlightenment. So we're saying, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. I will bring all sentient beings to a state of Buddhahood. So we share that because that won't extinguish until their aims are achieved. Very interesting. We can steer, in this way, we share our merit with them, and the virtue we create will not end until they have attained enlightenment themselves. We can steer the virtue in whatever direction we choose. Excellent prayers of aspiration may be found in the Sutra of the 10 Stages and the King of Prayers. The sixth way, which is the prayer of noble conduct that we recite a lot around here. The sixth way to create merit is by making material offerings and offerings of our practice to the three jewels. There is never any shortage of things to offer, but what is lacking is our faith and willingness. We can offer the unowned natural beauty of rivers, lakes, forests, mountains, wildflowers, and the sea, as well as the creations of our imagination. But if we are in a position to make material offerings, we should not be miserly and just do imagined ones. It is said that the offerings must be not too bad, meaning they should have been shouldn't be acquired dishonestly, nor should they be made with an ulterior motive. So we know when we do the 6 preparations, and we have that second step where we arrange offerings beautifully, it says that they should be obtained honestly, not bad. That's what this is talking about. And then also adding made with an ulterior motive. So the motivation behind offering them is added to the way that you acquired them, that you find in this second of the 6 preparations. They should be extensive, which means they should be generous and not stingy. And the state of mind with which they are made should encompass the good of all sentient beings. Living up the valley from Sera Monastery in central Tibet was Geshe Chotse, who had very few possessions. When he went to visit his spiritual master, Kyabje Trijung Dorje Chang, Trijung Rinpoche, one of Rinpoche's teachers, the junior tutor of also His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, he would pick up the apricots lying on the ground under the fruit trees next to his home if he had nothing better to offer. Once his benefactor gave him a warm meditation cloak. Since it was brand new, he felt very happy and took it as an offering to Kyabje Trijung Rinpoche. And Kyabje Rinpoche, knowing how poor he was, refused to accept it, determined to offer it anyway. Genchotse put it over the mounting block outside Chapche Trijong Rinpoche's house. This is the kind of motivation. You have nothing, you get something beautiful, and you're willing to offer it to your teacher. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path. Interesting. I remember attending a teaching on offerings to the spiritual teacher given by Kapche Trijong Rinpoche at Sera Monastery in South India. When explaining a particularly complex tantric practice, Kapche Rinpoche remembered how Geshe Chotse had once confided that no matter how long he remained in meditative equipoise on emptiness, he only ever experienced bliss, whereas he had found this particular practice difficult. Geshe Chotse died in Wolka Choling, where Lama Je Tsongkhapa had spent several years practicing very intensively. So he said that he'd find the bliss of emptiness, but giving away something, getting rid of this miserliness was harder in some ways. Interesting. The seventh way of creating virtue is by conscientiously directing our physical, verbal, and mental activities away from non-virtue to virtue, such as the practice of the six perfections. Opposing miserliness with generosity, opposing impatience with patience, imposing unethical behavior with opposing it with ethics, and to create, etc. And to create virtue in the eighth way, the Bodhisattva is advised to train in all aspects of the path of accumulation. So we see, when does one become a Bodhisattva? When one reaches the path of accumulation. And accumulates various virtues, and then eventually goes through the small, medium, and great levels of the path of accumulation and arrives at the path of preparation, which is when one has a union of a calm abiding and special insight, which has as an object of observation the nature of reality. So this is the marker of the path of preparation. But we see here, we're talking about this accumulation. This means concentrating on constructive activities with mindfulness and mental alertness, which is impossible unless one can control the senses by not reacting with attachment to attractive objects, with aversion to unattractive objects, and with confusion towards neutral objects. So we talk about that a lot. It's in dependence upon observing this object to have inherent existence that I exaggerate it and say that it's something that's really, really awesome. And then I'm drawn to it and attached to it. Or I exaggerate it and think it's something that's really, really awful. And then I have aversion towards it. And then I exaggerate it, thinking that it's not just mere imputation, thinking that it has objective existence, without even finding it, good or bad in any kind of way. So this kind of elaboration, the self-grasping ignorance that's just always humming there, ready to find an object it adheres to as inherently existent, as attractive or as bad, and then ready to have aversion or some kind of attachment towards it. Because of this self-grasping ignorance and so forth. And this ignorance also that allows us then to mistake wrong spiritual paths for right spiritual paths, and believe things that exist don't exist, like karma and its results in the Buddha and the Buddha nature and so forth. So this is what we mean when there's a neutral thing. Neutrally, we're seeing them as appearing as inherently existent. And apprehending them as such. Okay, so we'll end there, I think, because we got through 8, and then there's just some more. Let me just, in terms of what we can do in our life. Our intake of food should be moderate, neither too little nor too much, since both extremes are obstacles to virtuous conduct. Shantideva recommends that we should leave a third of our stomach empty. In addition to practicing during the day, the night should be divided into 3 parts, and we should sleep only during the middle part. Much of our life is spent sleeping, but this time need not be wasted, because by falling asleep in a positive state of mind, the sleep which follows becomes a source of virtue. So it's said that very important, because we sleep so much, before we go to sleep, engage in, fall asleep in practice, because if your mind is virtuous when you go to sleep, your entire night's sleep will become virtuous. It is said. So that's like a freebie. If we can have the mindfulness not to forget to at the time before we're going to sleep, think about virtuous things. We get some free, we're just sleeping. We didn't even know we're doing it. But we're gathering what we'll need to gather in terms of accumulation of merit to become a Buddha. So it's wild that we can sleep and accumulate what we need to become a Buddha. Thank you so much for listening. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. Thank you so much for listening. Let's do the concluding prayers, beginning with Lama Tsongkhapa's prayer for the flourishing of Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings. The Gontang Denbi Drome is really cool. Someone from Rinpoche's village is somewhere, doesn't matter where. They saw on Facebook the teaching, and they instant messaged me and told me that when they were a very little boy, they met Rinpoche. Very, very cool stories. And they are good friends with Rinpoche's actual nephew, who lives in Tibet, who we used to talk to on the phone a few times a week on our iPhone here. Rinpoche would call Tibet and talk to his nephew, Gao. And then suddenly I got an instant message 2 days ago from Gao's friend who saw the teachings on Facebook. So you never know how far these teachings are really reaching. It was wild in my mind. And he left me 10 messages that I have to really, really interpret better about Rinpoche, and something about a cat that Rinpoche was playing with in Tibet. And so amazing, social media, right? And then someone else who's Rinpoche's the great uncle or some great uncle of a young boy on TikTok said that he was related to Rinpoche. So that's the second time something so bizarre because of these teachings have happened in terms of connectivity of Rinpoche. And the person who contacted me said felt so nice to be able to hear the teachings and see Rinpoche's kind of lineage kind of going on, and it felt like connected very closely to Rinpoche at that time, and said that it was wonderful, the Lam Rim. And I explained to him through a message that Rinpoche had asked me to teach the Lam Rim, and then he was so happy, and it really made me feel so good to be able to really fulfill Rinpoche's wishes. Prayer for the flourishing of Je Tsongkhapa's teaching, the Gontan Denbi Drome, for those Tibetans. Though he's the father producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror's Lozang's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Endraketu, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praise his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish, that the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread. He offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. His pure view, free of eternity or destruction. His pure meditation cleansed of dark fading and fog, and his pure conduct practiced according to conqueror's orders. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Learned, since he extensively sought out learning, reverend, rightly applying it to himself, good, dedicating it all for the beings in doctrine. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Listening to the explanations of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, practice of the three highest higher trainings, his skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the conqueror's conduct, inwardly trusting in the 2 stages practice, he allied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle. Heart essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. By the power of ocean of oath-bound Dharma protectors, like the main guardians of the three beings past, the quick-acting Lord Vaishravana, Karamayana, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of the power of its patrons, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. We have to have our gurus, our lamas, stay in this world in order for the conqueror's teachings to flourish. So we see why that line is so important. Concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land, and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Lama Tsongkhapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I made, I apologize. They were inadvertent. Maybe I misspoke or I forgot something. If I did so, I apologize, and may it be purified, and all of your body, speech, and mind, and my body, speech, and mind be purified by this mantra of Vajrasattva, this purification mantra. And imagine Vajrasattva in the space in front of you, for those of you who know what Vajrasattva looks like, with the bell and dorje, as inseparable from your root Lama, inseparable from Khenso Geshe Wandak, inseparable from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And imagine that light rays and nectars of white, red, and blue are showering down on you and all sentient beings, transforming into white Oms, red Ahs, and blue Homs, and purifying our body, speech, and mind in that order with those syllables respectively. So imagine now that you and all sentient beings, body, speech, and mind are being purified by white Oms, red Ahs, and blue Homs, coming from Vajrasattva, who's in the space in front of you, inseparable from your Lama. Om benzo sato samaya manubalaya benzo sato zena vajijadita meva vasutukaya meva vasubukaya meva anuradu meva vasavazidi mebracha sabakama sucha mekitam chiankuru hum ha ho bhagavan savatata kata benzo mame monka benzo bava maha samaya sapa om ve. May we always be protected by Paul and Lama. Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Jo Rama Jijikalara Chamo Rama Chidacha Junjo Rulu Hong Jo Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Jo Rama Jijikalara Chamo Rama Chidacha Junjo Rulu Hong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Jo Rama Jijikalara Chamo Rama Chidacha Junjo Rulu Hong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Jo Rama Jijikalara Chamo Rama Chidacha Junjo Rulu Hong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Jo Rama Jijikalara Chamo Rama Chidacha Junjo Rulu Hong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Jo Rama Jijikalara Chamo Rama Chidacha Junjo Rulu Hong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Jo Rama Jijikalara Chamo Rama Chidacha Junjo Rulu Hong Jo. And anybody who's interested in how to connect more with the merit field, I just put a teaching up on YouTube and was looking at it, and it has a really good explanation of how to visualize the merit field in terms of in the context of connecting to it. So it's not just this two-dimensional fake thing that you're doing just because somebody told you to. So I think that it's really cool. I just uploaded it a couple of hours ago. It's the most recent YouTube upload. So yes, I think that it'd be interesting for you to look at if you want to gain more understanding of that. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the manifestation of Chenrezig Buddha in our world. So rare, so fortunate, so precious. May he stay and stay and stay and stay. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso. May you stay until samsara's end. Please just stay with us. He's promised that he's going to. So we're very fortunate that he's here. But that promise is only as good as our karma and the conditions we have in our mind stream to connect with that guru, with that lama. As I said last week, just because the Lama doesn't pass away doesn't mean we don't disconnect from them. So we always have to be praying to keep that connection to the teacher, keep that connection to His Holiness, keep that connection to Khenso Geshe Wandak. And that's why I wrote this and finished this prayer on March 6th of 2023, 1 year after Rinpoche passed from this world and assumed other forms, such as the enjoyment body and the truth body, that is always with us, that Dharmakaya, always present. The omniscience is present, and all we have to do is say, come, and Rinpoche is here with us. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khenso Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible, to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om Ahom. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like a teacher who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you kind abbot arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all your teachers passed away and understood the sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. Sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. Thank you so much, everybody, for patiently listening to this teaching. I hope that you can apply this to your life, apply this to your day, apply this to at your job, and try to act more like a bodhisattva. And the more we act as if, the closer we are to actually generating that precious mind, which is the only entrance into the Mahayana. And that's a mind that seeks enlightenment, Buddhahood, for the sake of all sentient beings. And we know it's a mind that's present day and night. And if we want a mind that's present day and night, we have to start with it being present sometimes. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate you. Thanks for your patience. I don't know what time it is. Sorry if I went over. Later. Thank you. Good to see all of you. I appreciate it. See you. Thanks. Good to see you. Take care.